At 4:00 a.m. on a quiet Sunday in Lancaster, California, a doorbell camera recorded a timestamp that would later become central to a case file. Not a scream, not an alarm, just a normal residential walkway, dim light, and a neighborhood that on paper looked like any other. The reason doorbell footage matters is simple. It doesn't argue, it doesn't exaggerate, and it doesn't forget. It turns a normal night into a time-stamped record one that can confirm who was there, what moved, and when the timeline begins to separate from the story people later tell. What makes this case difficult to sit with is how unremarkable it looked from the outside. A family lived here. Kids went to school, neighbors came and went. There were no flashing lights, no taped-off doors, just routine. And that routine is what investigators later had to rebuild piece by piece before anything else could be understood. As you watch this case unfold, keep one question in mind when a life looks stable on the surface. What details in the record tell you it isn't? Drop your thoughts as we go, especially when the timeline becomes clearer than the explanations. Shayla Cabrera was 33 years old. She had come to the United States from Peru, chasing the same promise many families chase: work stability and a better future for her children. In Lancaster, she was raising 3 boys, ages 9, 6, and 4, in a small apartment that had to function as everything at once: home, classroom, and refuge after long days. People who knew Shayla described her in simple, consistent terms: present, dependable, and focused on her kids. Friends in the community saw a mother who kept showing up, making calls, handling responsibilities, keeping life moving even when money and time were tight. It's the kind of profile that rarely draws attention from anyone outside a close circle. Her household ran on schedules. Mornings meant getting 3 children ready. Evenings meant meals, homework, baths, and the constant small repairs that come with crowded living laundry piles, backpacks by the door, dishes in the sink. In a modest apartment, those details are not background. They are the structure that holds everything together. Lancaster sits in northern Los Angeles County suburban streets, wide lots, and long drives that are normal for families here. For many residents, it's a place you move to for space and affordability. Apartment complexes like the one on Lancaster Boulevard are busy but familiar: shared stairwells, close parking, and neighbors who recognize each other's routines without necessarily knowing the details. On paper, nothing about this address announces a crime scene. It looks like thousands of other family residences, working parents, children, school calendars, and the quiet assumption that tomorrow will look like yesterday. That assumption is powerful. It's why warning signs can stay private, and why a case like this can begin without anyone outside the home realizing the stakes. In early August 2025, the days still carried the usual rhythm: summer heat, family logistics, and the close quarters of apartment life. Shayla's world was measured in practical things: appointments, childcare, and making sure her boys had what they needed for the next day. To neighbors, it was just another household settling into another night. Inside the apartment, bedtime routines did what they always do: quieted the space, narrowed the day down to small sounds, and left the building to its overnight stillness. Doors latched, lights went off one by one, and the camera outside continued recording the walkway the same way it had recorded it the night before. To understand why this case became possible, investigators first had to map the relationship history that was already known to family and friends. Shayla Cabrera and her husband, Josimar Cabrera Corno, had built a life across borders Peru to the United States while raising 3 small children. On the surface, it looked like a working family adapting to a new country. But the record as described by Shayla's mother in Peru includes earlier reports of domestic violence. According to her mother, Shayla had reported Josimar for abuse back in Peru. That matters in a case file because it establishes a prior pattern being discussed before any later events in California were even known to the public. The allegations didn't stop at Shayla. Her mother stated that Shayla told her Josimar hit her, mistreated her, and even slapped the youngest child, who was 3 years old. In investigative terms, that expands the risk footprint from partner violence to a household environment where children are exposed to harm and coercion. Friends in Lancaster later described Shayla as someone who carried heavy burdens quietly. That's not speculation, it's how witnesses often explain why warning signs stay contained. People close to the home may hear about conflict while neighbors see routines continuing. The difference between those two perspectives is where many cases begin to form. One detail repeated in the accounts from those around Shayla was fear tied to the children. According to a friend, Josimar would threaten to leave with the kids, threats that kept Shayla from acting sooner. In a pre-incident timeline, threats like that function as control behavior. They are not a prediction of violence, but they are a documented lever. When a person believes their children can be taken, normal options shrink. Calling for help can feel risky. Leaving can feel risky. Staying can feel risky. Investigators and advocates often describe that as a no safe choice dynamic. In this case, friends said Shayla stayed trapped for years under that pressure, trying to keep life stable for 3 boys. By the summer of 2025, people close to Shayla said something shifted. The idea that things might improve seemed to be fading, and the risk of staying was becoming harder to ignore. That change is important to document not as psychology, but as a timeline marker, the point where long-term tension turns into decision-making that can trigger escalation in volatile relationships. In early August 2025, friends reported that Shayla asked Josimar for a divorce. That is a concrete pre-incident event, a stated intention to end the marriage. In casework, separation and divorce requests are often treated as high-risk transition points because they can change access control, finances, and daily routines all at once. The transcript also includes repeated references to the same theme, fear of retaliation through the children. Shayla's friend described her as too scared to act because of the kidnapping threats. Investigators don't need to guess motives to document effect. The effect here was delay days, months, years, where the situation remained unresolved and privately managed. Then comes the last clearly stated pre-incident communication on August 9, 2025. Shayla spoke with her parents in Peru. She told them she planned to leave Josimar and take the children with her. In a documentary built on records that call matters because it fixes intent to a date and connects it to a plan involving the kids. Shayla's mother said her daughter also talked about filing a report against Josimar in Lancaster. That's another concrete pre-incident step, not just leaving, but documenting. It signals an attempt to move the situation from private crisis into an official record. For many cases, that transition between private knowledge and formal reporting is where timelines tighten and choices narrow. Witnesses later described the home as filled with tension in that period, with Josimar aware that change was coming. The transcript does not provide private messages or phone logs, so we don't invent them. What we can document is sequence-reported long-term abuse-reported threats involving the children, a divorce request in early August, and a family call on August 9th describing a plan to leave and file a report. Those facts don't explain everything, but they explain why the tragedy did not come out of nowhere. They show a progression from hidden instability to documented intent. They show how the children were central to the pressure keeping the situation in place. And they show that by the night of August 9th, Shayla had moved from endurance to action, with people outside the home now aware. In Lancaster, the apartment complex continued its normal cycle, families inside, lights, turning off cars, settling into their usual spots. Shayla had told her parents what she intended to do next, and friends had already described the risks she believed she faced. The record up to that point is still a set of decisions waiting to be carried out in a household that looked quiet from the outside. On the afternoon of August 9th, 2025, the apartment complex on Lancaster Boulevard followed its usual pattern. Families moved in and out of shared stairwells. Cars rotated through the parking lot. Inside one unit, Shayla Cabrera's household ran on routine childcare meals and the normal constraints of a small apartment with 3 young children. Nothing in the public space suggested an emergency. As evening approached, the complex quieted. Lights came on behind curtains. Neighbors returned from work. This is the baseline investigators later used, a period described consistently as calm, with no reported disturbances and no calls for service linked to the address during those hours. Access to the apartment did not require forced entry. Residents and visitors moved through common areas without drawing attention. That detail matters because it explains how someone known to the household could enter without triggering alarms or suspicion from neighbors. At some point after nightfall, activity inside the unit stops appearing in any external record. There are no confirmed messages, no logged calls, and no camera angles that show movement from inside the apartment. For investigators, this is the first notable dead time and absence of data, rather than the presence of an event. The layout of the complex becomes important later. A shared walkway, stairs connecting multiple units, and a parking area visible from nearby doors. These are common spaces open enough to be seen, quiet enough late at night to feel empty. In the early morning hours of August 10th, a neighbor returning from a night shift noticed activity near a vehicle in the parking area. According to her later statement, the timing stood out because the lot is usually inactive at that hour. She observed someone working around the trunk. Shortly after, a nearby doorbell camera recorded movement along the shared walkway. The footage shows a man struggling with a large wrapped object, pulling it across the pavement toward a car. The video does not show what is inside the bundle. It shows only weight, effort, and direction. The path captured on camera lines up with the physical layout of the complex from apartment door across the walkway to the parking area. Investigators later confirmed the movement matches the most direct route available at that location. After the vehicle departs, the camera records nothing unusual. The walkway returns to stillness. No neighbors intervene. No alarms are triggered. This contrast, an ordinary exterior before and after a single recorded movement, becomes central to the timeline. For the remainder of that night and into the next day, there are no verified outgoing messages from Shayla, no calls logged on her behalf, and no camera footage showing her leaving the apartment. Investigators document this as a prolonged silence rather than a single moment. Outside the apartment, the city continues its routine. Traffic moves, stores open, neighbors follow their schedules. The absence inside the unit runs parallel to normal activity everywhere else, a juxtaposition that only becomes clear after the fact. By August 12th, friends who were used to regular contact grew concerned. When calls and messages went unanswered, they reported Shayla missing to the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. This is the first documented request for official intervention connected to her disappearance. Deputies responded to the apartment complex to take a missing person report. As they assessed the situation, inconsistencies began to surface, prompting further scrutiny. At this point, the location shifts from a private residence to a site of official concern, and the case moves out of the household and into the hands of investigators. Once Shayla Cabrera's disappearance escalated from a missing person case to a homicide investigation, detectives moved quickly to identify a suspect. Attention centered on her husband, Josimar Cabrera Corno, the last known adult to be with her and the person whose statements had already raised concerns during initial interviews. Investigators cited several reasons for prioritizing him. Surveillance footage placed a man matching his appearance moving a large wrapped object from the apartment complex. Witness statements, prior reports of domestic violence, and inconsistencies in his explanations combined to narrow the focus. This was not a process of assumption, but one of elimination based on available data. At the same time, investigators learned that Josimar Cabrera Corno and the couple's 3 children were no longer in Lancaster. Their absence added urgency. With no confirmed location inside California, the case expanded beyond a local search into a cross-border concern. Authorities coordinated with federal partners and foreign consulates. Information was shared with officials in Mexico and Peru after investigators determined Josimar had likely traveled by land. At this stage, he had not yet been formally charged, limiting what foreign authorities could legally do if he was encountered. While the suspect's trail extended south, search teams in California continued working another critical lead. Multiple mountain search and rescue units were deployed to the Angeles National Forest, responding to evidence that suggested a possible disposal site far from the apartment complex. On August 16, 2025, search teams located material consistent with what had been seen in the surveillance footage. The discovery confirmed investigators' fears and solidified the direction of the case. From that moment, the search for a missing person formally became a hunt for a fugitive. Law enforcement assessed the situation as ongoing but contained. There was no indication of a random threat to the public, but the suspect's unknown location required continued alerts and coordination. Investigators emphasized caution while they worked to prevent further harm. Days later, officials confirmed that Shayla Cabrera Corno was in Peru. He had been questioned previously but released due to the absence of formal charges at that time. With the investigation now advanced, his location was monitored closely through international law enforcement channels. On August 27, 2025, Shayla Cabrera Corno turned himself in at Interpol headquarters in Lima. Video released by authorities showed him in custody, handcuffed, flanked by officers. With his surrender, law enforcement confirmed that the immediate threat was over and the manhunt had ended. In this case, the prosecution's path starts with documentation, video, witness observations, and a physical recovery that could be compared against what cameras recorded. Investigators treated the early timeline as evidence first, narrative second. A key anchor was surveillance. A neighbor's doorbell camera captured a man moving a large wrapped bundle along the apartment complex walkway toward a vehicle. The footage establishes time direction and a transport event without requiring interpretation beyond what the camera shows. A second layer came from a neighbor who reported seeing activity at the vehicle trunk during overnight hours, behavior that stood out because the area is typically quiet then. In casework, that kind of observation functions as a time marker that supports the video timeline. Search teams later recovered Shayla Cabrera in the Angeles National Forest, described by investigators as wrapped in material consistent with what appeared in the surveillance footage. That linkage video showing a wrapped bundle, then recovery of the victim wrapped in similar material, tightened the evidentiary chain. Prosecutors presented their theory in formal terms. The Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office alleged Shayla Cabrera, 33, was killed on August 10, 2025, at the Lancaster apartment she shared with her husband, Shayla Cabrera Cornejo, 36, and their children, with an allegation involving a knife. On August 21, 2025, the DA's office announced a murder charge against Shayla Cabrera Cornejo. The filing turned an investigation into an active criminal case, establishing the counts the state intended to prove and triggering the next step, securing the defendant's return to court. With the defendant outside U.S. custody, prosecutors sought an extradition arrest warrant and international coordination. These steps are procedural warrants notices and diplomatic channels that don't decide guilt, but determine whether a courtroom can obtain jurisdiction over the accused. By mid-December 2025, Los Angeles authorities announced that Cabrera Cornejo had been extradited from Peru and turned over to Los Angeles County to face the murder charge. The public safety focus shifted from locating a fugitive to processing a defendant through court. In filings and statements, the case rests on how the state connects independent sources, surveillance showing transport witness observations placing unusual activity near the vehicle, and the recovery of Shayla Cabrera in a condition consistent with the wrapped bundle seen on camera, then tying those facts to one suspect's access and opportunity. As of the extradition announcement, this is where the official record leaves the public. The defendant returned to face the filed charge, and the legal process moves into arraignment and hearings that will determine the trial schedule. The maximum exposure described by prosecutors is 26 years to life if convicted.